Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. Today it is the 31st of August, 2022. It is Wednesday. We're one day away from the start of the Big 12 football season, but we got a big piece of news this morning. Uncle Brett Yormark has got us covered. The Big 12 is to enter negotiations with Fox and ESPN and start their early negotiation window, getting the jump if possible. We'll break down all of the implications of this news coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. Today it is the 31st of August, 2022, one day away from the backyard brawl and from Oklahoma State and Central Michigan. So shout that game out too. Once again, huge news this morning with the Big 12 entering their early negotiation window with Fox and with ESPN. We'll get to that in 1 second. Make sure you guys join our CBS Sports College Sports Pick'em. It's free to do. Go to cbssports.com, make an account. You guys go to the fantasy section. They've got the college sports pick'em. All right. Sign up. When you guys do, it's free to do. It's Locked On Big 12 as a group. Big 12 is a password. BIG12, all lowercase and together. And you guys can pick games against the spread each week. Just Big 12 games, some other games as well. Top 3 winners in the end of the season will get prize packs courtesy of Locked On. All right, folks, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. You must be a subscriber to win the contest, to win the prizes. So make sure you guys do that. Big news this morning. Brett Yormark feeding us information here, feeding us content here. I thought we'd be doing just football really from here the rest of the way out as I move this out of the way to make sure my mic is in good positioning. I thought we were just doing football the rest of the way here, kind of a next weekend or so. But this is a big piece of news that we got this morning. This came from Pete Thamel over at ESPN. He says Fox and ESPN have agreed to engage in discussions with the Big 12 about the league's next TV contract, sources told ESPN. The imminent opening of these conversations is significant as they come more than a year and a half before the league's television contract calls for a formal, exclusive negotiating window with both current partners. This development allows the Big 12, which has a contract through the 2024 football season, to potentially get tangible future revenue numbers for both its member schools and potential additions. The conversations could lead to contract negotiations on an extension, which would be a distinct advantage for the Big 12 as it navigates this uncertain moment in college sports. There is no formal window on these conversations between the Big 12 and ESPN and Fox, which are expected to begin soon. If no deal is reached, the conference can still secure a deal through a more traditional timeline. One source said Yormark is doing what he should do, trying to gain an advantage. And then also he says that if the Big 12's talks to ESPN and Fox turn to negotiations, it would likely be for a short-term extension that gives the league clarity after the current deal expires following the 2024-2025 academic year. Also says the willingness of the Big 12 television partners to come to the table could mitigate one big advantage the Pac-12 has in conference television landscape. At Pac-12 Media Days, George Kliavkoff said the league was in, quote, the enviable position of being next to market, end quote, after the Big Ten. All right, let's stop there. Let's break this all down. So, let's start with that. The one advantage that the Pac-12 had on the Big 12 is that for its current members, they could have a tangible television, numbers out there that they could put out. All right. They had a 2-month jump on this as it stands right now, right? They started that in July. John Canzano had said that he believed that we'd hear some numbers on this following Labor Day weekend at some point here in the next month and a half or so, whenever that happens. Next month or so, I guess, because now September is here. All right. George Kliavkoff had said that this was an advantage, and I agree with that, because the Big 12 could put up nothing to kind of contest what those numbers were. That's now changing. And I have to believe that the Big 12 and Brett Yormark have a lot of confidence in what they're going to see if they're going to make this move. You have to believe that when you go to ESPN and Fox, you're going to like what you hear, and maybe other schools are like what they're going to hear as well. They've had some time to sit on this and calculate about this, and they decided now is the right time to go and see. Brett Yormark, for all the talk that, the talk of a new commissioner, and new commissioners do talk, this is tangible action that we can see that the Big 12 is making right here. This is now becoming potentially a bidding war. That is what is on the table here. You can now put numbers, or eventually soon put numbers on the table for schools like Utah, for schools like Arizona, for schools like Arizona State, for schools like Colorado. They can now match up and see what they want. Also, too, the one thing I think is interesting about this is this creates a back and forth situation where the Pac-12 could try to respond, right? They could try and add some members maybe and try to up the value of their television deal, or this could end up being a back and forth between both leagues being pitted against each other by the television partners. Or also, ESPN claims they have no involvement in conference realignment. I don't know about you all. I tend to think television markets are very much involved in this. Now, they're not the ones saying, Greg Sankey, go grab these two schools. But look, is the Big Ten in any way, shape, or form, worse off now with UCLA and USC? No. Is the Fox, the television partner, worse off? No. I'm sure that they were both on board and okay with what was happening there. The one thing that the Big 12 now can do is they can basically say, kind of the television network, all right, what else can we do to strengthen the package here? The answer is get some more late games. They could go and say, all right, we can strengthen our package by adding Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State. That could strengthen the package. The one way I think people out there could argue that this might backfire is that if you don't like the numbers that you see, could current Big 12 members go say, hey, is the Pac-12 getting a better deal? This could happen. Although the timeline makes me think that that is unlikely. You're not, and once again, I'll go back to this point, guys. I don't think you make a move like this unless you have supreme confidence in a lot of the news that you're going to get. I think that is something that we have to think about here. Another question I have is, how much of a 2-month advantage the Pac-12 getting there? How big is that now? And does it remain important? If you're Utah, if you're Arizona, if you're Arizona State, if you're Colorado, the four corner schools, because really those are the ones that we've talked about heavily joining the Big 12. Or, is there a situation where, okay, we've said George Kliavkoff will sign over our rights no matter what happens? No, I don't think it is. I think those schools are patiently waiting to see what happens now. So the Pac-12, I think at this point, could have that window negated, because what could happen here is Utah, Arizona State, Arizona, and Colorado, and other schools as well might say, well, hold on here. We're not going to sign anything over until we figure out what the best position is for us. And as much as the Pac-12 was trying to put forward a face of unity and being together, it's tough to hold that position in a moment like this when the Big 12 is making this move clearly to pitch to its current members and potential future members about joining. So that kind of unity part of it goes out the door. And also, I think there's a good and I'm not trying to be disingenuous to Pac-12 here. I did honestly believe that 2-month jump was big, because you're kind of sitting there thinking, well, I believe the Big 12 could be in a better television spot. I think they can, but I don't know for sure because we don't have the numbers. Well, the Big 12 is now saying, all right, we'll put numbers in front of everybody here, our members and your members. And so all that work for 2 months gets negated in the way. Now, look, there could be some stuff in place ready to go for the Pac-12 in case they say, no, we're good on the Big 12 front. So that could be one help of having the 2 months. But I believe largely that the 2-month kind of gap there that we had has really been negated. It really has been struck down, because once again, if you're those four corner schools, why wouldn't you wait? Because now you go from a position where you're in a conference where you're losing teams and you're unsure about the next TV deal, to a spot where now two conferences are coming to you and offering you different things. I mean, if you're those schools, you went from feeling left out to now, and look, and I heard Jason Shear said this, like Arizona was making calls to different conferences. So, now Arizona is going to get the numbers they want to see. ASU and Colorado and Utah, and maybe even Stanford and Cal, I know people don't like that, or Washington, Oregon, like they're all going to get numbers from multiple leagues and can make decisions. One other part of this that was mentioned in this article was maybe it's a short-term deal. I think that's a very interesting prospect as well. There is a chance that maybe the negotiated short-term extension to make sure that they hit market again here, relatively sooner and can continue their momentum. You can, try to maybe build a larger conference or whatever it is. Now it could work the other way. It could be saying, well, you're just waiting for other conferences to pick you off, but I'm not sure the Big 12 feels really threatened about their schools getting picked off. I think kind of part of that is gone. Now it could definitely come back, right? You could definitely have a time period where, that happens. But look, I've been as far as it goes to the Big 12, I think everybody feels pretty good. I think those schools feel pretty excited about what's happening here. There's a lot of forward momentum for the league, and this does put them in a better position. I know John Wilner has the Pac-12 survival favorite odds thing he does, and it said it went to a 5-point favorite because the Big Ten is done. Well, I think this move does tangibly put a small dent in that, right? I'm not saying it's a knockout blow, but I think in terms of strategy, when you go Big 12 versus Pac-12, this is a move that was in the Big 12's favor. Now, look, I'm not saying the Big 12 was playing from behind as always, but I said a few minutes ago that early window being the next college football product to market was an advantage for the Pac-12. It still is an advantage because they're technically the one that can start sooner. But in terms of negotiation for Fox and for ESPN, they can now negotiate the future of their products. It's now even footing, right? For when these partners, at least the current ones, can get involved. And here's where the advantage comes in for the Big 12. Let's talk brass tacks here. Let's talk about tangible stuff. The one thing that we know is that when the Fox loses the Big Ten, right? We talked about it a few weeks ago. It was like 27 games or whatever it was. All right. Those are early window games that ESPN can now make sure they have covered on all fronts, right? They can make sure with the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12, they've got noon and 3:30 covered up. All right. They also can add some inventory in the back end here, right? What time is Baylor playing BYU? They're playing that game at 10 p.m. Eastern. That is Pac-12 after dark right there for you. What happens now is that, you can offer those games. Look, sorry, BYU fans, but they're used to it. But I think that 8:00 Mountain Time start, like 4 or 5 BYU home games a year, should be starting at that time. I think that's the way it should work because they can add more inventory in the back end. And also, I'm really not opposed to all the to Texas. I think every Big 12 school in the central time zone should be asked to play at least one game at 9 p.m. Central Time. A start time of 9 p.m. Central puts the start of the game at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's the window that they want, the late night game, the late night slot, so they can go. I'm not going to go all the way to 11 o'clock. The only school you could do that with really right now is BYU. But still, it's more inventory later on in the evening for a 10 p.m. start if they could offer that as well. So whatever gaps, whatever holes, whatever things were left by the Big Ten leaving, ESPN can now actually address that a bit faster than they were in the past, right? Or they were always going to have the negotiating window, but maybe they can feel a bit better about their situation with those things happening right now because now this negotiating window is about to take place. The other question I have, the other network, is Fox. All right. How active will Fox be in these negotiations? Did they just say yes just to say yes, or is Fox legitimately interested in continuing to add other conferences? Because right now, folks, it's in terms of the future, it's just the Big Ten, and also the Big Ten's being spread out. So there is still inventory on FS1. Maybe even FS2. On FS1, there is space for inventory. On Fox, there is space for inventory because it sounds like we're going to get the one big game, but they've got more than one broadcast team allocated for football on the college side, right? They have that. Jason Benetti and Brock Heward last week. Gus Johnson and Joe Klatt call games for them as well. Joe Davis does college football too. He's been on, he does a lot of the Pac-12 games because he does the Dodgers play-by-play. But I think that's something, another crew too. So look, they've got inventory open if they want some shoulder programming around the Big Ten games that they're going to have on their networks. Because once again, that Big Ten deal is spread out. So I think there is some desire there from Fox. And then this kind of leads to the next thing is the Big 12 going to give away everything here, or are they going to maintain some stuff that they keep in their back pocket? Are they going to keep some stuff in their back pocket for a Paramount Plus, for a, CBS Viacom, obviously, NBC and Peacock, and Apple TV Plus, and Amazon Prime? Talked about Amazon Prime. They struck out in the Big Ten. They struck out trying to get the Champions League as well. So with those two misses, I think you have to ask yourself, okay, is Amazon Prime interested in this game? And if you are the Big 12, or if you are Amazon Prime, are you interested in Big 12? Big 12, do you save some inventory that you can then distribute extra? Because that's the one thing about this early negotiation window, is that it does preclude you from going out elsewhere. So you have to decide how much of the Big 12 rights package are you now going to sell? Is it going to be a wholesale, right? Are we going to do it all in one place? How many years? Who gets what? Basketball, it's a big thing too. A lot of that Big Ten basketball was very important for ESPN. Big 12 offers a chance to get the marquee games that you want. Kansas, Texas Tech, Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, Baylor, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, Kansas. I mean, we go up and down the line in this league, and it's banger after banger after banger after banger. We got ESPN Plus having top 25 games last year between Texas and Iowa State. This league is effing stacked when it comes to hoops. I'm sure it's a product that Fox might want, that ESPN might want. And I don't know about streaming services necessarily wanting, like how valuable is a Wednesday night game between West Virginia and Baylor? Is that where you want to put stuff to push people towards streaming? I know they do that now. Like I don't love that, but I'm wondering how worthy that is. But there's inventory there, folks. There's inventory there to be sold. Though another question now is, how does the Big 12 conference split this stuff up? Do they keep it together? Do they go all in? Do they just because you're gonna have to get the numbers that you want from ESPN. It's gonna have to be the primary package, right? You got to see what you get from the primary before you can go. Then you go to Arizona, to Utah, to Colorado, to Arizona State, and say, hey, here are the numbers that we are getting for our primary package. Also, if you guys come in, that expands a little bit, and also the secondary stuff is there too. It's more games, more inventory. So I love this move for the Big 12. It is Brett Yormark being aggressive. It feels like really there's not too much of a downside to this, unless you really get some bad, you get bad numbers from ESPN and Fox. But once again, I would not anticipate the Big 12 is making this move if they aren't excited about what they're going to hear. Or maybe, hey, maybe I could be totally off and they're feeling forced to make this move because of the position the Pac-12 is in, maybe moving towards a TV deal. Maybe Brett Yormark said, all right, this is our best chance to take more teams. Maybe it's a gamble in that respect. But I think that I'd lean more towards this as calculated, right? New commissioner, I'm going to make a splash, could be a risk, but I think this is a calculated move, in my opinion, for Brett Yormark. And I think this is a significant move because now we're going to get numbers versus numbers. And I know we've already rehashed a lot of Pac-12 versus Big 12 numbers, but once again, a lot of those Pac-12 numbers are predicated on late night television slots, helping their numbers get boosted because people have their TVs and the only games that are on, those are late at night. So what that means, we'll see moving forward. That will do it for today's show. Once again, make sure you guys sign up for our CBS Sports Pick'em over there. Must be a subscriber to sign up to win. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at LO Big 12. You guys can find me at Josh Neighbors _ we are 1 day away. 1 day away. Next show will be a prediction or a pick show, plus more weekend thoughts with myself and Robbie Triano, kind of previewing what's ahead this weekend. Not a great slate, but still a lot of action there. 1 day closer to football, but some big television news first. All right, my friends, till next time, as always,